Hello again, everyone. Welcome back. Let's talk about Stoicism. Many philosophers describe Stoicism as the endurance of pain or hardship without the display of feelings and without complaint. Now, the way I personally like to describe Stoicism to someone who's never heard of Stoicism before, or someone who doesn't know anything about Stoicism, is life sucks, not just for you, it sucks for everyone. So shut up, lean into it, because it is what it is. I know this may sound a little bit harsh, and some people may even argue that life doesn't suck, but the reality is that there's a lot of pain in the world, and it is what it is. And the sooner we understand it and lead into it instead of fighting it, the easier life ultimately is for us. Now, the context of life sucking is something that I've explained on multiple episodes in the past, and I'm going to try to attach some of those episodes down below so you can watch them if you're new here. But essentially, my philosophy is this: when you think about existence itself, and by existence I'm talking about not just human reality, not just humans, not just life as we understand it, not just the earth, not even just the physiological universe as it is right now. I'm talking about the entirety of everything, to positive and negative infinity, everything. I do believe that there is some type of order that holds everything together. I call this order the pattern. Again, this is something I've talked about in the past, and actually there's an episode that I did on the pattern. Again, I'm going to try to attach that so you can watch that episode. I think I did a good job breaking down what the pattern is and basically essentially explaining why the pattern itself is God. Because God is not a being, but God is being itself. So the entirety of everything that exists, again, not just humans, not just human reality, not just life as we understand it, not just animals, not just plants, not just atoms, molecules, not even just the physiological universe as it is, the entirety of everything is held on by this order that I call the pattern. And I do believe that literally everything must subscribe to that pattern. It is impossible for you to not subscribe to that pattern unless you will not exist, including humans to a certain extent. But I think that the only difference is humans' ability to make choices. Out of everything that in this physical world anyway, that this pattern has manifested in the physiological world, I believe that humans are the only exceptions to a certain extent. Everything else about humans still follow that pattern in aging and getting sick, what happens to our body, breathing in, breathing out, and things like that. All those things definitely do follow the pattern, but in our consciousness, our ability to choose to remain in accordance or in alignment with that pattern or to go against that pattern, that is the only exception when it comes to that entire existence itself, especially in this realm of humanity. Now, as a result of our ability to choose, when we choose to align with that pattern, again, I've talked about this on multiple episodes, when we choose to align ourselves with that pattern, there is no suffering, there is no pain. We flow naturally with that pattern. There's no friction, there's no restriction whatsoever. But when we choose to go against that pattern, we suffer. We create suffering. And as a result of suffering, we create pain. So as a result of the unanimous pain that we've created, there's something now called existential pain. It has become part of the human reality. And this is why I say that life sucks. You could even try to argue this as what happened in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, like I mentioned in the past, are not literal people, and the Garden of Eden is not a literal place. I believe that the Garden of Eden is a representation of the perfect world that was supposed to be if humans, we align with that perfect pattern that courses through our being. But because Adam and Eve had the ability to choose to go against that pattern, they chose to go against that pattern, and the result is suffering. And as a result of their suffering, which is sin, we now have existential pain that is part of this reality as human beings. Once again, to reiterate, life sucks. And the reason why life sucks is because of our ability to make choices in the existence of everything. And by everything, I don't just mean humans. I'm talking about humans, animals, plants, atoms, the universe, the physiological universe, and a whole everything in the entire universe. There is order, perfect order, and this order I call the pattern, and this pattern is good. It is precise. Again, I've talked about this on multiple episodes. Actually, there's one particular episode where I talked about the pattern. I broke it down in details. Everything is in alignment with that pattern, including humans to a certain extent, except our ability to choose. When we choose to align with that pattern, there is no sin, there is no suffering, there's no pain. But when we choose to intentionally go against that pattern, we create suffering, which is sin, which is hell. And as a result, that adds into the existential pain as human beings. And this is why life sucks. And now it is what it is. Every single one of us, we feel this existential pain to a certain extent. I may feel it differently from the way you may feel it. You may feel it differently from someone who is in Africa. Someone in Africa may feel it differently from someone who is in Asia, and so on and so forth. Men may feel it differently from women, different ethnicities, and so on and so forth. But I do believe, this is just my philosophy, that this pain is even. It's 100% even. It just looks different on different people because that order, that pattern of, or that order that courses through existence itself understands how much you can bear and how much you cannot bear. So for example, me as a human being, my pain may seem a bit heavier than yours, or yours may seem a bit heavier than mine. That's because I have been perfectly created to be able to handle my pain, and you've been carefully created to handle your pain. You could not survive my pain, and I could not survive your pain. But on a spiritual level, it's 100% even. Now, even though there is existential pain in this world, there's still order, and that order is good. My definition of goodness here is not the goodness that we've been taught growing up in churches, give money to the homeless people, be kind, be nice, and things like that. That's not the goodness I'm talking about. I'm talking about more so like a mathematical goodness. It's precise, it's ordered, it's perfect, it's pristine. Again, I've explained this on multiple episodes. Check out that episode where I talked about the pattern. I broke it down very much, what goodness is and what goodness is not. That pain is still in accordance to that good order, and it is imperative that we lean into it and not fight it, right? Because it is what it is. Once you begin to fight that pain, you create suffering, and when you create suffering, you create more pain for everyone. Perfect example I like to talk about is with the story of Jesus. Now, disclaimer, as I mentioned multiple times on this platform, I'm not Christian. I don't identify as Christian. However, I am very spiritual. I do read a lot of the Bible. I read a lot of the Torah, the Quran, and a lot of people have told me that a lot of my spiritual practices is more closely to Buddhism, which I do understand to a certain extent, but I do believe that a lot of my spiritual practices can definitely be found in Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, and so on and so forth, because there's really one singular truth, and that one singular truth could be found in literally every single one of these religions that I mentioned. But one of the things that I like to explain to a lot of people, especially Christians, is the life of Jesus. Jesus is the greatest Stoic that has ever walked the earth. Jesus was a man of extreme pain and misery, yet he was able to take all of that with grace and still exude peace. He understood from a much younger age that life sucks. He also understood at a really young age that he had a divine purpose, and it was imperative for him to lean into every single one of his reality with grace and still be able to exude peace. So Jesus definitely, even though that a lot of Christians worship him, and a lot of people see him as a miracle worker, and he's able to literally do anything, turn water to wine. He's able to make himself a king if he wanted to. He's able to manifest a mansion, manifest the best life possible. He understood that pattern at a really young age, and he understood that his fate, his destiny, whatever you want to call it, is one of suffering and misery. And that was in alignment with that pattern that I talked about, and he knew that it was imperative for him to maintain, to stay in accordance to that pattern and not change anything. So he leaned into his suffering and the suffering of the world with grace, and he was able to exude peace. And this is what's really interesting about Jesus, when he said that he has come to show us the way. Because unfortunately, a lot of people back then, yes, Judaism was basically the main religion back then, but unfortunately, a lot of people just go to the synagogues, read the Torah, just tick the boxes. There was no spiritual alignments, there's no spiritual essence to the religion that they practiced back then. So it was necessary for Jesus to manifest, to show people the way that we're doing it wrong. He leaned into all the pain with grace and was able to exude peace. Now, one thing that I find extremely inspirational about the life of Jesus is how he was able to lean into what is, no matter what, even to the point of when he was getting murdered. He was about to get murdered, and instead of him to fight back, he was even humble enough to, and caring and compassionate enough to pray for his enemies and say, Father, please forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. One thing that I've been able to take away from that story is whenever you lean into what is, you absorb some of that pain. And this is why it is important that you are intentional to do good at all times. And I know this is very difficult even for me as well, but this is one of the things that made the life of Jesus very important for him to manifest as a human being, to show us the way. Whenever you're not part of the problem, yet you lean into what is with grace and you exude peace, you absorb some of that existential pain. And because you absorb some of that existential pain, you alleviate some of that pain from everyone else. And because Jesus was literally the man who did no wrong, yet he suffered the most, he was able to absorb a lot of that existential pain. And this is why he was a lamb who was slain. And this is something that is very indicative of what Christians are supposed to emulate. If you are a Christian, it is imperative, it is important for you to lead into what is. When you fight what is, you create suffering. And when you create suffering, you create a harsher existential pain for everyone else. However, when you lean into what is, no matter what that thing is, no matter how painful it may be, you absorb some of that existential pain, and the amount of pain in the world reduces as a result of your ability to lean into what is with grace, yet still exuding peace. Now, this mentality of letting go is something a lot of people usually end up learning as they get much older. Jesus just happened to tap into it at a much younger age. He understood the importance of leaning into what is and not fighting it from a spiritual perspective at a really young age. But a lot of people usually in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s start tapping into it. It could be a situation where you're on the freeway, you're driving, somebody cuts you off or flips you off, instead of you to fight it and start cursing at them, which will subsequently lead you to create more suffering into the word and add to the existential pain. You just take it with grace. You're like, it is what it is. People will be people. So you lean into that situation right there and then without fighting it, because it is what it is. You lean into that situation right there and then with grace, and you exude peace as a result. By doing that, as simple as that, you absorb some of that pain as opposed to you fighting it and creating more suffering and more pain in the world. One of my favorite books in the Bible is the book of Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verse 13. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. So the way I like to interpret this is fearing God basically translates to be in alignment with that pattern that courses through you. Again, this pattern is something that courses through everything, existence itself. This pattern on its own is God. It is 100% ordered. It's precise, it's pristine, it cannot do any wrong. It courses through you as a human being, just like it courses through rocks, just like it courses through literally every single star system on the planet. When you are in alignment with it, you flow with that pattern. You flow with God. You are one with God. However, whenever you go against it, you create suffering, and as a result of your suffering, you create a harsher existential pain for everyone. Conversely, when you lean into that pattern, where you are in alignment with that pattern that courses through you, you are one with God. And no matter what type of pain, what type of trials, what type of tribulations you face around you, when you lean into what is, you absorb some of that pain. And as a result of your selfless sacrifice, the world is a much better place. Once again, Stoicism is leaning into the pain and hardship of reality without complaints. Life sucks. Life sucks because of the choices that we've made as human beings. So therefore, it is what it is. Lean into what is as opposed to fighting it. When you lean into what is with grace and exude peace, you absorb some of that pain. However, when you fight what is, you create more suffering and subsequently more pain. Please let me know if you agree with everything that I've shared today. Type your comments down below. If you don't agree with me, also please type your comments down below. I absolutely enjoy reading these comments and responding to some of you guys. And if you're joining today for the first time on my YouTube, please make sure to download, subscribe, share with your friends and family. Please do not forget to hit that bell notification so anytime I upload a video, you'll be the very first to be notified. Thank you so much. Until next episode. Bye-bye.